Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. I'm John. I'm your host, the host with the most, and you're not. Hey, I got a lot of great compliments and emails about yesterday's video, so I'm going to finish up these here questions with you guys. Like I said yesterday, you guys have the best questions. These are real questions, and it really is my honor to be able to give you my opinion. Alright, so let's get into them, huh? Let's start with, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name, David, I apologize. David W. Kosarek Sr. posted, Dear John, we know civil war seems inevitable as well as World War III, but be not discouraged. Since Vietnam men in pajamas defeated the Chinese, the French, and American forces over time, then that being true, then the invading foes of our soon future, whoever they are, they have a big problem. God, family, and friends, this is what sustains us. Remember, occupation will never work out for long. Remember, even if they had sent 50 million foes, they still can't be everywhere at all times. What do you think? That's a great question. Let's start with the foreign invasion. Foreign invading force. If they were to come over here, they would be met by many angry, well-armed, well-trained, and unfortunately not as well-regulated as I would like. Well-regulated meaning practiced. That's what they meant when they said well-regulated militia being necessary to a free state in the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, 1789. Right? That one. That Constitution, not the one in 1871 that they substituted. But enough on that little digression. Americans should be more practiced, and I have to tell you, it'd probably take a couple of months and we'd be up to speed. So, a foreign army coming here? Yeah, occupying a country does not work well against guerrilla forces. And your reference to Vietnam is an excellent example. It didn't matter who was trying it. Everyone ends up paying a massive price. The Soviet Union had problems in Afghanistan and backed out. Our country has not defeated, right, the freedom fighters. It doesn't matter what country you go into, whether it's us going into another country or another country coming here. Whoever was born on that soil has a connection to it. They are the freedom fighters, whatever they believe freedom to be. Right, in America, we like to believe freedom means get the fuck out of our face, don't tax me unless you absolutely have to, and it better be small, right, and stay out of my life. Don't send the police after me over everything, etc., etc. In other countries, they think freedom is the government giving them stuff from other people, right? That's their idea of freedom, is a lack of competition. You know, anyways, other countries have their ideas. Yeah, this country, we could put up one hell of a nasty fight. Will Americans? Most won't, but many will, and that's all it takes. Now, to get down to this thing called civil war, I do not believe that you and I are going to fight a civil war. I think you and I are going to end up fighting a partisan war. That is, freedom-loving Americans, those guys that say, get out of my face, don't tax me, don't tell me what to do, don't arrest me over bullshit, right? My rights matter more than government privilege. Right? We're going to have to fight communists and socialists and fascists. Now, if there is something that we would more rightly determine as civil war, that could happen if the Democrats win the Congress back, impeach Trump, and without a conviction in the Senate, try throwing him out of office. That would cause not only a partisan war, but also military factions to have to step in to stop the military factions from trying to take over. We could have a divided government and therefore and thereby a partisan and divided military. That would be a crying shame. But it would also let us know how determined and disgusting our enemies are. The enemies of the Constitution. That is, those politicians and those military men who took an oath, swore to God they would uphold and defend the Constitution, and then tried wiping their butts with it. That would be horrifying. And once again, the American people would rise up, choose sides, and we would have it out. I don't want to see that happen, but it could happen. And then, yeah, World War III, an invasion here, what a mess. I don't want any of it. I don't. All right, OC commented, if you think about it, the section of Portland was in without the rule of law, a WROL situation. The leftists determined that they were the law, and Portland PD said, we're good with that. Do what you want, end quote. But they watched, and I feel certain that had someone defended themselves, Portland PD would have been right there to arrest them. That is very true. The police love to respond to a serious criminal situation, especially when it suits their political, personal agendas. Right? If someone breaks into your house, threatens your life, you take out a gun, defend your life, shoot that person, and whether they're dead or not, you get arrested, you go to jail, you have to defend yourself. That is how this country is. We have a constitutional right recognized by the current Supreme Court, as in recent decisions. Yet you still face arrest. You still face private property confiscation as a result of that arrest. It affects your job, your social standing. Everything about your life is ruined because some fucking scumbag breaks into your house. And the police will arrest you. Now, there are good jurisdictions, I will admit, where the police go, look, we got your name, we got your number, we know where the person was shot, it's right here in your house, we're not arresting you, right? We're going to do our investigation, and they do, and they find that the homeowner was protecting their life, and nothing bad happens. But in many jurisdictions, especially in large cities that are highly leftist leaning, right, you will get in trouble for defending your own life. In Portland, yeah, the same thing will happen. In a without the rule of law, shit it's the fan situation, you can bet that there is going to be partisan retribution by some law enforcement agencies if they're willing to take the time and go out and even see what the fuck is going on when the streets are in chaos. Right? And there's not enough of them to patrol all the streets at all the time, especially when there's chaos. But there will be what I would like to call selective enforcement. Oh yeah, selective enforcement. Right? There was looting, there was stealing, there was robbing, there was raping, there was murdering in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. And where were the police? Where were the National Guard? Where were the other law enforcement agencies brought in from other states? They were in the suburbs and the wealthy areas confiscating weapons. Fuck you very much, America. Thanks a lot. You know, my opinion is just my opinion. I'm not always right. I make predictions. I think about things in different ways. I try and get you guys to think. And when I do speak, I like to try and use historical facts, historical precedents, common parlance, right? Common sense. I like to use those as a guide for what I'm saying to see and measure against whether or not I'm accurate. Right? You guys can do the same with me. Measure me against what you know and what you think. Right? And just use me as a sounding board that way. Okay. Don writes, what are the odds we enter a civil war? Who would win? Well, the winner, the good guy, always wins. Because after that victory, they proclaim themselves the good guy. Whoever stood against them are evil pricks, and therefore the enemy of all that is good and holy. Now, what are the odds we have a civil war? I think the odds of a partisan war. I just don't see the likelihood of a civil war being very high. By a civil war, I mean a military taking on the military of the de jure proper government, our constitutional government, and try and overthrow it and install another regime, usually under a reputedly benevolent dictator. I don't think we're going to see that, but we very well could. The odds of that I would put at 1 in 10. The odds of a partisan war, that is, leftist lunatics taking one too many steps over the line and fucking with good, honest, God-fearing, red-blooded, patriotic, constitutional Americans who are armed with their Second Amendment rights and weapons will respond in kind. I put that at 50-50. On a limited scale, at some point, it's going to happen. It's becoming more apparent every day that the radicalized, violent, instigating left, led by high politicians like Hillary, like Maxine Waters, like Eric Holder, out there race baiting, gender baiting, wealth baiting, and telling people just to act violent, and then pretending they're not, but they are. I don't think any Republican out here, any conservative, any constitutionalist is going to go on a shooting and murdering rampage against the leftists. I think that at some point they'll be pushed and threatened and probably assaulted before they respond in kind. Okay, Ben, what is the significance, if any, of Nikki Haley leaving the UN? This is going to come down to my opinion on this question. Thank you, Ben. Great question. I think Nikki Haley is a neocon, right-wing, fucking warmongering fascist. I don't like her. I don't care how articulate she is. I don't care how well she can argue her case. When you look at what it is she wants, it is not peace, it is not love, it is not common prosperity among all nations. It is the same old rhetoric of do what we say, we're the United States, or we're going to fucking punish you. We're having massive problems with Saudi Arabians using weapons to kill Yemenis. And in all truth, yeah, they all hate each other. So what? They're still killing, right? And I don't hear Nikki Haley screaming and yelling about that, right? It's always about this with her. It was the military-industrial techno-complex of win, 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 fight, fight, fight. And that's just how I thought of her. It's just my opinion based on a few years of experience listening to her and to people that she loves, and I don't care for it. Right? She is brilliant and as articulate as she is. I think she has a personal agenda and political dogma that is the antithesis of a moral and good person. And just because you're in a position of power and authority doesn't mean you take that power and authority and beat the fuck out of people you don't agree with. Enough said. Robert writes, we have not had an audit of the Pentagon since the 1990s. Well, I believe that pre-9/11, on 9/10, Donald Rumsfeld was answering to the Pentagon, not to the Pentagon, to Congress. And he said, oh yeah, there's $2.5 trillion missing. The next day, the 9/11 happened, and the Pentagon was hit in that exact office, that exact section of the building where that documentation was stored. They were being made to answer. In other words, it was a form of audit, right? And then we go to the audits done by Professor Skidmore and his graduate students. They found that the Pentagon and the Housing and Urban Development, HUD, have been hiding $21 trillion. And that information is now labeled as classified. It has to do with national security, and there will be no answering for it. So every time an audit has occurred or a light audit, what we don't have and we won't have, Robert, is we're not going to have an audit where we sit the people in charge down in chairs, examine their paperwork to the extent of our satisfaction, ask them about it, and hold them accountable and say, look, $21 trillion is missing. Where the fuck is it? And they go, geez, we don't know, and it was used for this. They're not going to tell the truth. It's national security. They're not going to tell the truth. I say you put them in prison. National security, my ass. National security at the expense of me, my children, someday my grandchildren. Every other American out there is paying for their decisions, and they want to say national security. It is frustrating. It is irritating. It's like dealing with children in the government who just go, I don't know. All right. You can't make me. I'm going to run to my daddy. And daddy to them is the sovereign government. And my daddy's bigger than your daddy. And you can't do anything to me. And you can't make me. Right? We can't even spank them. They're spoiled, rotten children. And they've got a hold of the nation's bank account. And we can't hold them accountable. There needs to be an accounting. All right. Another Robert writes, or it might be the same Robert. It just says Robert. John, what about the 48 U.S. Navy warships off the coast of Grenada? Florida Marquis talks about this. What about Trump saying he likes and trusts and says the Clintons are good people? It is all a cabal, John. China with Venezuela. Remember Iraq and Libya going against the oil companies. Long ago I read about Bill Clinton was born in the UK. There's some good conspiracy stuff in here. I hear about these warships, these U.S. warships. They're here. They're in the China Sea. They're in the Mediterranean. They're in the South Pacific. They're off the coast of Grenada or Venezuela. Our warships go where they go. The Florida Marquis guy, right? I wish I had more information on this to prove or disprove it. But as far as I'm concerned, every time I look into this, I don't see a lot of real evidence. Now, moving on to Trump says he likes and trusts and says the Clintons are good people. That is disconcerting. I don't like that. I tell people I hope Trump is doing good things and has a good plan, but I don't know that. When I hear and have read things like you just wrote, it is disconcerting, and that's why I say I don't trust Trump 100%. But he's the president, and I'm hoping he's doing a good job. I'm not going to the bank with that hope. I'm not taking that hope and throwing it in Wall Street. Right? I'm not misusing that hope and emotionally building in my heart a place, right, that can be shattered and destroyed. I'm expecting complete and utter treason from everyone in the government because that is, in all truth, what governments have done in the past, here in the United States and abroad. Now, I'm still going to point to Trump and say, could he have just been being a nice guy? At one point, I did a fucking video where Trump and his wife is standing next to and having arms around and glad-handing Hillary and Bill Clinton. I said, what the fuck is this all about? Right? I've questioned him all along the way. But something of very powerful note is that Trump is doing things and saying things that is irritating the living shit out of the left. Right? He's upsetting them. They don't like him. He is rocking the boat, right? He's toppling the apple cart. He's kicking over the money changer tables. He's doing stuff. And is it for all show? Is it bread and circus? Politically, it could be. On the other hand, why go through the fucking trouble? All the rigmarole of this. Is it just to fool us? Is the public play that important to have? Couldn't Trump just sit back and be another New World Order cuck and be told what to do and bitch slapped around by the New World Order? And not have all of this trouble out here and just take us over, pass their laws, pass their rules, and just tell the American people, go fuck yourselves? Couldn't they just do that? Couldn't they just say, well, it's an international treaty, that trade treaty NAFTA and that Trans-Pacific Partnership, you're just going to have to deal with them, and the Senate ratified them, and that makes it constitutional. Turn in your guns, pay taxes internationally, pay that carbon tax, give all your money to third world countries. Right? They could do all of that, and what would we do? We'd sit back and go, well, yeah, we got fucked again. Well, I guess we get it every time we get a new president. Oh, well, we could do that. Or we could say, maybe there's something that's going on. Of course, it's not going as fast as I'd like. But then again, I brought up in the past, and I'll bring it up here. I want them to go arrest Hillary. I want them to go after Holder. I want them to go after Obama. I want them to go after every scumbag piece of caca. I cleaned it up nicely, huh? Super banker, super rich, super elite, super douche, trillionaire. Even the billionaires, but also the trillionaires. I'd like them to go arrest them. But could there be a threat? Could there be extortion on the part of those powers that they have nukes, dirty nukes, planted nukes offshore for creating more tsunamis? Could they cause a problem and cause nuclear power plant meltdowns? Could they interrupt everything? Could they crash the banking system 100%? They could do a lot of things, and we're not sure what they really can do. And maybe that is the extortion they're using to hold Trump off from really going full steam ahead. Maybe they're cleaning that up in the background, and we don't get to see that. So we are impatient and pissed off. But is it better to be impatient and pissed off than to ultimately lose this the hard way and go into Captain Caveman? I can't believe my shadow's burned into the wall behind me because that nuke went off. Right? Do we need to lose 50, 100, 150, 200 million Americans in an absolute catastrophic shit-it's-the-fan situation because John is just a little too impatient and they arrested people too soon? Right? Who knows for sure? Will we ever get the truth? I fucking doubt it. Is life shitty that way? Yes, it is. Am I holding out some hope? You bet. These are just my opinions again. Remember, folks, they're just my opinions. But once again, these are great questions, so I get to answer them. If you ask me to give an opinion, I'll give it. I'm not going to be unequivocal about it. I think we're going to have stock market trouble before the election. I think we're going to have Antifa getting fucking stupid before, during, and after. Right? I think we're going to have all kinds of problems, and I'm prepared for it. And that's what it is to be a prepper. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. That's what we have to have. Because we don't know what the fuck is going to actually happen. If nothing happens, holy shit, what a deal. Let's eat our food. Let's have a Thanksgiving picnic. Invite all your neighbors. If it's going to be uncertain for the next 10 to 20 years, that's a long damn time. And we may well see that. I predicted 6 months ago that there's a high likelihood we're going to have a crash now. I predicted 4 months ago we're going to have upstart leftists getting violent, and they're doing it. It's not getting reported in the mainstream news, but it's happening. Is it happening to such a scale that we're having cities melt down? Well, you might consider Portland to be that way. Have we gotten it anywhere else? Not really, but it is happening. It's getting worse. You know, those are my predictions, right? I also predicted that oil needs to be above $80. We've gotten close a couple of times, and they knock it back down. Is there stock market manipulation? Yes. Is that an excuse for why it's not going higher? It could be. Am I wrong? I don't know yet. The fall's not over. But I do know that oil companies are losing their asses, especially on shale oil and fracking. I do know that they're not making the money up in Alaska. They're pumping the oil out, but they're not profitable because of the expense of working in the Arctic Circle to pull that oil out, ship it, or pipe it to where it needs to be. There's expense in that. The oil has to be more expensive. So for the time being, oil price is low, but that's where I think it needs to go. The dollar needs to crash, not because I want shit to hit the fan, but because that is what has to happen to satisfy nature's law, even with regard to economics. Right now, the dollar's getting stronger. In the last 2 days, it's almost gone up 100 points. It's actually gone up, as of the time of this video, 75 to 85 points. That is, almost a whole 1 point. That's in the last 2 days. It is skyrocketed in 2 days. It is crushing countries like Turkey and India. It is crushing the euro. It is crushing other currencies. And you're like, it's just 1 point, John, or 100 basis points, or 100 points, whatever you want to call those points. Right. In 2 days, it's gone up 1% or 1.2%. That's a lot. In 1 day, all of a sudden you wake up and 1.2% poorer. Gee whiz, thanks a lot. What's causing this is uncertainty in the markets. They're pulling money out of the stock market. Oh yeah, the Dow went down today significantly. And they're putting that money in the first place that people run to as a safe haven. First place they run to, the dollar. Second place they run to, the bond market. Not corporate bonds, government bonds. Third place they run to is precious metals. Precious metals have held their own with the strong dollar. And the dollar going up, they have not plummeted. Bonds have not plummeted. which is usually what happens. In fact, the bond rate went up, and it's still up well over 3% on the 10-year bond. It is higher. It is past that number where everyone said, if it goes past 3, grab your ankles because it's coming. Well, it's coming, right? The dollar's going to get stronger. Everything else is going to crumble behind it, and then the dollar crumbles with it. It's the last one to fall. Why? It's the world reserve currency, the U.S. dollar, the petrodollar, the world banking reserve currency. Just because everything else is failing doesn't mean it can't fail with it. We're going to shit hits the fan economically. Okay, now John Boss writes, and he's got a lot of stuff in here about Nordic punch and drinking and alcohol. John usually writes really funny stuff. I'm going to try and skip all of his stuff about gin and having fun with gin. And I'll just go to his comments. I just wanted to add an idea that you can expound upon, either now or another day. Namely, that even though the internet is a wonderful tool used properly, we must be aware that even it is an instrument of control. Well said. So as we strive to maintain civilization as it was passed down to us, it is our responsibility to ourselves, and especially to those who have only lived during the internet age, to be aware of this blind spot. Yeah, that's very true. The internet is a tool for information. It is a tool for communication. It is also a tool of psychological control and manipulation, economic, political, social, legal, and in all ways control. As I stated yesterday to R. Jenkins, who said, why so much politics? Right? Right. Because they're all interconnected, and the internet is part of that. They're trying to control it by now countering, not just countering, but also silencing opposing viewpoints. If we didn't have Trump in the White House, who himself has to use Twitter to communicate with the public the way he needs to. If Hillary was in the White House, do you think that YouTube, Facebook, Google, Twitter, and other social media sources would have any compunction, would have any reservation about silencing me and everyone else, every other channel, every other news outlet? Oh, they would be all over us like stink on shit. They're still progressing. They're still moving forward, still trying to silence us, still trying to punish us. But they can't get it done. Not yet. And there's going to be retribution. And when Google and ABC Corporation fails, that stock fails and people lose their asses for financing it, that is investing in it, they're not buying stock in the company when you buy Google or Netflix. And fucking Netflix is fucked. You're not buying stock in it. You're competing with others to loan them money. That's what you're doing when you buy stock. You're loaning them money, hoping that someone else at a future date is going to be willing to buy your stock and loan them even more. Can you fucking believe that? That's what this game is. You're not buying a company. You're not buying a piece of the economy. You're competing in a fucking hot potato / cakewalk / musical chairs where everyone's running around thinking they're rich because the values are going higher. But when the music stops, everyone loses. Everybody who is holding a slip of paper that says they get a chair, and there's only one chair, and the rich guy that sold at the beginning is sitting in it, sipping a martini, a gin martini, and having a good laugh at everyone else. Do your best, do your research, do your homework, protect your family. That's my prayer. Right? Chance favors the prepared mind. Right? It's not prepared politically, it's not prepared economically, it's prepared in all ways. You have to meet your Maslowian hierarchical needs: food, water, shelter, clothing, right? Defense. Those are your most pressing needs. They're everyone's pressing needs. Beyond that, right, you have to be prepared. You have to understand, right? How much more confusing will shit it's the fan be if you don't know where it came from? If you didn't understand how we got to where we got. Back in 2007, 2008, people were scratching their fucking heads going, gee whiz, My house was worth $400,000 and now I can't give it away. I'm upside down in my loans. They didn't understand it. Right? People don't seem to understand, where did these wacko socialist, leftist, communist, fascist pricks called Democrats come from? Holy shit. Well, guess what? They've been there the whole fucking time. Me, you, and everyone else who has seen them for what they are have noted it. It's just now they're verbalizing it. When shit hits the fan, these people are going to be in our fucking faces. Some of them with guns. And you need to understand now who they are. You need to understand now the threat they pose. You need to understand now what you're going to have to do about it if they get in your face, if they become a real threat. They're not those harmless fucking hippies from the Bay Area, wearing Birkenstocks, putting flowers in their hair. That's not who they are. They are violent Marxists. They are radical fascists, doing the bidding of their funding masters. That's who they are. And people who don't understand that ahead of time are going to be pretty fucking surprised, don't you think? You bet. All right. Once again, you guys, how many times do we got to say it, right? Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed. God bless America. God willing, we'll make it through this shit. And Semper Fi.